Hey, what's good, fam? Back with Andrew Bone, Bama Insider. Bone, our pre-show was good, man. I mean, things are going so well for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I mean, we'll kind of just get right into it. Ty Lockwood commits to Alabama. Flip, your take. I know we talked about it earlier today, but why everybody gets checked in. Why don't you kind of rehash on the big news for Alabama today? Go ahead, Chris. Hit that clip.
Yeah, Ty Lockwood, the 6'5", 225-pound tight end, committed to the Crimson Tide. On Tuesday, flipped his commitment from Ohio State to the Crimson Tide. Pretty much a surprise commitment, not necessarily in the last couple of days, but if you would have told me Ty Lockwood was flipping to Alabama this time last week, I'd have told you you're absolutely crazy because we had not talked about him at all, and I don't think he really even considered Alabama that much. Alabama went and saw Ty Lockwood in January. This is how long ago it was. Doug Marrone, Alabama's former offensive line coach, went and visited Ty one day in January just to see if he was interested, check things out. And his coach pretty much told him locked in with Ohio State. He committed to the Buckeyes last fall. I think it was back last August when he originally committed. Pretty locked in. He was very solid with his commitment. And then, I think what may have transpired was Ohio State did get a commitment in the middle of the month last month from Jelani Thurman, four-star tight end out of Georgia. I don't think that necessarily scared him away or anything, but I think it at least made him start considering and being open to other schools. So, one of the first schools that, reached back out to him was Alabama, and he decided to take a visit down to Tuscaloosa last Thursday. Worked out, spent a little bit of time on campus, and then on Friday got that scholarship offer from Nick Saban. And it was all, and Alabama was always interested in him. It wasn't anything like, they missed out on all these different tight ends. There's still some tight ends that are out there that they are recruiting, but they just wanted to get him on campus. They wanted to see if he was interested. And he finally made the trip down to Tuscaloosa last week, received the offer, and then, obviously it went really well. We heard, some rumblings on Saturday that things were going very smoothly with Lockwood, and there could be some announcement this upcoming week with him. And boom, he ends up flipping to the Crimson Tide. So great pickup there. We got a lot of great content on our page on BamaInsider.com right now. Interview with Ty Lockwood. We've got an interview with his head coach. I had a chance to talk to his head coach earlier this morning, and he just absolutely raved about Ty Lockwood. Just the type of person he is, the type of kid he is, and was very complimentary of him. Talked about his character and integrity. Said that not only is this guy going to be a great football player, but he's going to be a great person in his entire life because of the type of human being that he is. So you got to be excited about Ty Lockwood jumping on board. This is more of your athletic, receiving type tight end. And he's not, your guy that's going to be one of these inline blockers. He's going to go out and make big plays. He's had over 1,000 yards. I think I want to say it's around 1,085 yards receiving combined over the last two football seasons. Head coach told me today, he said, we're going to be getting him the ball every way that we can this fall. We're going to split him out at wide receiver. We're going to let him play H-back. We're going to let him play tight end. But the goal is to get him the ball and make him or let him make a lot of big plays in their offense. He's also a guy that's going to enroll in January. So, always great to get those kids enrolled early and get their career started right away. So big pickup today. Ty Lockwood flips his commitment from Ohio State to Alabama, giving Alabama a total of 18 commitments, which is crazy considering we went into the summer. I think it was 3 or 4 commitments heading into the summer, all doom and gloom. Everybody was all upset. Nick Saban had lost his touch. We did the same thing last year. Coach Saban had lost his touch and didn't know what he was doing anymore. We kind of the same thing 2 years ago. Alabama went into the summer, only 3 commitments. What was going to happen, and then all of a sudden, number 1 class, number 2 class last year, and then right now the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and still a lot of guys who are out there that have high interest in Alabama, likely committing to Alabama over the next month or so, and we're going to see some. I think we're going to see some more big names, jump on board as the season progresses, as we continue to see guys take visits and season, somebody's season might go a little south. You look at kind of what happened last year with some guys who flip late. Jahai Campbell ends up flipping to Alabama late because Brent Venables gets the head coaching job at Oklahoma. Stuff like that is going to happen. Stuff like that happens all the time. So got to keep an eye on, a lot of different players throughout the recruiting season, not just the ones that we're talking about right now, but there's more names that can pop up at any given moment. We saw that with Ty Lockwood in the last week. So big get for Alabama when, it pretty much the entire recruiting season, we never expected him to join Alabama's recruiting class. So nice surprise there. And you know that the Alabama coaching staff is extremely excited. First big win for Joe Cox, Alabama's new tight ends coach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great addition for Coach Cox to add to his tally on the commitment list. So big win there for Joe Cox.
Hit the thumbs up, fam. Like and subscribe. We're here live on the Bama Insider with Andrew Bone, coming to you at 8 p.m. Bone wanted to move the show back. He's like, look, we got to have everybody locked in, dialed in. So I think it's a great call to have the show on the evening time at 8 p.m. regularly. We had it last year at 6 p.m., so we moved it back. Ty Lockwood announces today that he's flipping from Ohio State to Alabama. And then on Monday, Alabama added Hunter Osborne. Really loved Hunter Osborne's film and just kind of the motor that he has. But before we go to him, as Bone mentioned, and one more slide, our producer Chris put together this incredible timeline of Alabama's class. We're going to zoom in and kind of go from the beginning all the way to the end. And of course, later on in the show, we'll get some questions from you guys that you can ask Andrew Bone. I'll throw them on the screen. I'll ask Bone your question, and then we can kind of move along with our show. But as you can see, way back in February, Hill Hurley, back in, almost March, you have, a cornerback coming in. And then as you can transition, as the months went by, people were starting to get nervous. And then you had a 4-star come in. Eli commits right before June. And then Bone, things started really getting hot. I mean, what were you thinking at this kind of point? Because we knew right as Eli jumped on board, and Holstein has an incredible tape. I really like what he brings. But I mean, when things started to, really heat up, and, in the summertime, we're just like you. We're going to the beach with our families. We're hanging out. We're barbecuing. And then it just really started to heat up. I mean, Bone, this summer slam dunk season for Saban, I mean, it got wild. It's still wild. I mean, they just landed, 2 commits in the last couple of days. Your take on Saban's summer, dunk session?
I mean, it's pretty remarkable what Alabama was able to do. I mean, the biggest thing is, get the kids that you always felt good about getting. The guys like Wilkin Formby, Eli Holstein. I think Alabama, once he decommitted from Texas A&M, all signs pointed to Alabama. So, there was a big push there to get Eli Holstein officially on board. You got your JUCO guys, Malik Benson, Justin Jefferson, 2 guys who were top priority recruits for Alabama. Of course, they took some other visits. Malik Benson named Tennessee after his leader after his first visit to Knoxville. But we knew, as long as these guys held out, made the visit to Alabama, things were going to go pretty well for the Crimson Tide once things got going. And, as we've continued to see just name after name that has dropped, I guess, some of the bigger surprise commitments that we've seen, really over the last month and a half. I mean, you look at Tony Mitchell. We all felt, probably, I would say up until about February, everybody felt like Tony Mitchell was going to Alabama going to Alabama. Mm-hmm. Then he started taking visits to Florida and Texas A&M, and there was all these rumors that he was leaning towards both of those programs. And at some point, I do think that Texas A&M was the leader. I do think Florida was the leader at one point. And Tony even made a trip out to College Station this past weekend. But in the end, he's still pretty firm with Alabama and commits to the Crimson Tide. Rockwez McElderry, we talked about him, really since he received his offer from Alabama back in November. And a week later, he committed to Georgia. We said, just let this play out for a few months. He's going to make it back to Tuscaloosa for junior days, for spring practices, for, during the summer. And, at some point, that flip is likely going to happen because this is a kid who lives in Anniston, grew up a big Alabama fan. His close friend, former teammate Antonio Kite signed with Alabama in the 2022 class. So we just felt like, at some point he was going to eventually flip, and he did. Then you go over to the state of Georgia. Alabama being able to land a second quarterback in Dylan Lonergan. That's really tough to do, especially with, you got Eli Holstein on board. Dylan Lonergan had a lot of scholarship offers and had a lot of top programs coming after him, wanting him to be their only quarterback in their class. But Alabama really wanted two quarterbacks. They made him feel very comfortable with being a second quarterback in the class. And, there's a lot of, high remarks from the Alabama coaching staff on Dylan Lonergan. They feel like he's an elite player. Staying in Georgia, Caleb Downs. I mean, a guy who could be the cornerstone of this recruiting class, at least on the offense or on the defensive side of the ball. It was a close race between Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. Many felt like it was an Alabama-Ohio State battle all the way until the end. He ends up picking Alabama. I mean, that's a humongous win there.
Yeah.
Justice Haynes, Georgia legacy. Everybody said he was going to Georgia. I'm sure he probably even told people he was going to Georgia. But he had that great official visit to Alabama the same weekend as Caleb Downs in January, in June, and things just went really well. Even after that visit, I had heard some really positive things about Haynes and his interest in Alabama. But at the same time, you're like, well, Georgia's still going to be tough to beat because it's in Georgia, Buford High School. He is a Georgia legacy and definitely somebody that Georgia really wanted as part of their class. But Alabama just really sold him on being a special player in Tuscaloosa, and he jumps on board. So those are some big names. And then you saw Richard Young last week announce his commitment to Alabama. I mean, such a big pickup there. Even though we felt like Richard Young was a strong lean to the Crimson Tide, you just never know when another elite player at his position commits. And Justice Haynes, as soon as he committed, he even came out and said, "I am going after Richard Young. I want him to be in our recruiting class." I wouldn't be surprised if he was already in the class at that time, but I do think that Richard was very comfortable with Alabama taking Justice Haynes, and Justice was very comfortable with Tide also having Richard Young on board. So, great 1-2 punch right there in Young and Justice Haynes. Ola Salinen, there was all these rumors that he was going to end up at Miami, but you know what he said after he announced his commitment? He said, "Rings over Lambos." So that's kind of the slogan we're seeing from a lot of these Alabama commitments. Even Hunter Osborne announced his commitment on Monday evening to Alabama over Tennessee and Texas. So and Clemson. So it's something that we're starting to see more often. A lot of kids saying pretty much that same thing. So it's pretty interesting. But Hunter Osborne, very talented football player, 6'4", about 200, and he measured 6'4", 267 pounds. I think his weight might be a little off there on the profile page, but measured 267 pounds this past weekend during an unofficial visit to Alabama. He kept things quiet about going down to Tuscaloosa because obviously with a commitment on Monday, he didn't want anybody to know that he was in Tuscaloosa because that would have really given things away. But he told us to kind of keep things quiet on that end. But he camped at Alabama not last month, but in June, did really well. Coaches, sat down, really discussed a lot of different players who came in for camp. If they were going to make a push forward, if they were going to pass on, even guys that had offers. Guys that may have had a committable offer prior to coming to camp. Some of those guys, they don't have committable offers anymore. Mm-hmm. And a lot of guys who did come to camp earned those committable offers. And, Hunter Osborne was certainly one of those guys that they were really impressed. I think with Osborne a little bit, this was an in-state guy that, they really liked a lot. And they communicated with, very heavily. I mean, treated him as a top priority type recruit, but at the same time also wanted to see him in camp, wanted to see him work out again, make sure that they were doing their due diligence. And once they saw him, once again they decided that he was definitely a guy that they wanted as a part of this 2023 recruiting class. And I keep telling people this: because if you see somebody, you see a player at a position go elsewhere that you really wanted, let's say Peter Woods, doesn't necessarily mean that this was the plan B guy, because guess what? Peter Woods isn't signed with Clemson yet. He's still out there. He might be committed, but you're still recruiting him. You don't go to your plan B, your plan C guys until December. You're keeping in contact with a lot of those plan B and plan C guys in case you need to jump on them in December, but you're not offering those guys, or you're not giving a green light to those guys to commit right now. This is a guy that they saw, they evaluated, they wanted, and they really pushed for over the course of the last month or so. So anytime you say, well, they may have gone after this guy because they didn't get this, that's not the case at all. That's the case in November, December, but not the case right now. It's still very early on. There's a lot of guys that could emerge during their senior season. So if you're taking a commitment from somebody, right now in August, or, whether it was July or, over the course of the next couple months, these are plan A type guys for Alabama.
Here with Andrew Bone of Bama Insider. My name is Kyle Henderson. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on our recruiting show. He's Andrew Bone. You can follow his work at On3. Just Bama Insider. Bama Insider has moved from Rivals to On3. A ton of great work from Andrew and the rest of the crew, which includes Joseph Hastings, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein. I, too, am part of that staff. I am not on the message boards. I am here on YouTube. My new position also includes overseeing a lot of the YouTube channels within the On3 network. So I get to, help duplicate what we've had, the success we've had here across the network at On3. So still, knee deep in Alabama. I couldn't leave, Bone, and, we have this great tandem going. So later on in the show, we will ask some recruiting questions from you guys. We're going to take some, and I'll feed those to Bone. But Bone, as we look at some bigger names, most recently, a lot of people talking about some of the visitors who have been to Tuscaloosa, Keon Keeley, Jalen Hale, Jaren Hamilton, Miles McVay. Let's just start with Keon Keeley and kind of give everyone kind of the update there. There's a lot of excitement, clearly surrounding, I guess people who want to see someone flip from Notre Dame, but kind of your take right now.
Well, I'm sure most people saw Richard Young tweeted Keon Keeley saying that he was going to flip him from Notre Dame this week. But, I think getting him on campus was huge for Alabama. It was the second time they've had him on campus since his commitment to Notre Dame. Came up for junior day earlier this year. And, things went kind of silent. He didn't really do many interviews, and anytime he did any interviews, he really talked just about Notre Dame, didn't really talk about any other schools. But behind the scenes, there had been a lot of communication between Alabama and Keon Keeley for a very long time, really ever since January when he was offered and came up for junior day, when Coach Saban visited his high school. He has remained a priority target for Alabama. And he came to Tuscaloosa on Friday and Saturday, had a great time, spent a lot of time with some of Alabama's best pass rushers, including Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, and also Chris Braswell. He also spent some good time with Alabama sophomore linebacker Keanu Coate, who he's very familiar with, has a relationship with. Definitely some guys that are trying to recruit him hard to Alabama. And I know he had a great time in Tuscaloosa this weekend. I do think that Alabama is a major contender in his recruitment. Obviously still committed to Notre Dame, and they're going to fight to keep him as hard as they can. Kind of what I'm seeing, in my opinion, it may not happen, but this is kind of my opinion. I think at some point, it could be this month, could be next month, I can kind of see Keon maybe taking a step back, reopening his recruitment, being able to enjoy the process a little bit this fall, which will include, an official visit to Alabama. Will likely get back to Notre Dame for an official visit. I think Florida can get an official visit from him. And if he takes a step back and reopens things, of course, that's going to probably open up the floodgates, and you're going to have a lot of schools that are going to be coming after him, trying to get him on campus for an official visit, or at least for a game. So he's going to certainly get a lot of attention. Probably already is now that people know that he's taking some visits elsewhere. But I do think Alabama is going to have a great chance to land his commitment. I don't think it's anything imminent. I don't see him flipping to Alabama this week, but I do think that Alabama is a very strong contender. If I were to make a prediction right now, I'd probably lean to Alabama, but we're still probably a little bit away from him making a final decision. So let's just kind of take a step back, see how things go over the next few months with Keeley. But he had a great time in Tuscaloosa. We've got an interview on Bama Insider with Keon Keeley's mom, talking about the visit, kind of where they're at in the recruiting process. And I do think after Joseph talked to his mom the other day, it certainly got the feeling that it's going to be a while before anything happens.
Here with Andrew Bone and Bama Insider. Definitely hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We have 391 people inside this video. If we can get the thumbs up to match that, we'd appreciate that. You can follow Bone's great work on 3, simply at Alabama on 3, but the website is titled Bama Insider, so you don't have to type in too much difference. Just go to Bama Insider and look for Bone's great work. Also joined by Joseph Hastings, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein. Those guys do such a great job. Bone, before we ask, I wanted to ask you about, Jaren Hamilton, Miles McVay, Ellis Robinson, but I wanted to ask you, and I text you today, Tony Mitchell, said, I'm locked in. Clearly, this is a big deal. He was just in College Station. Kind of give everybody, he clearly said that he's locked in. Your take on Tony Mitchell and kind of where things stand with the 5-star out of Thompson.
Yeah, I think Tony just wanted to have go on a trip out to College Station for the weekend. I don't really see him on flip watch or anything like that. I think he had a good time. May go back out there this season, but in the end, I think he's all Alabama. I mean, this is a guy who's been recruiting hard for Alabama. Of course, you could say the same thing about Ty Lockwood recruiting for Ohio State for the last several months. But Tony's, in my opinion, he's an in-state kid. He's at Thompson High School. He loves Alabama. Been treated like a top priority. Has a great relationship with the coaching staff. Talks to them just about every day. And you're part of an elite recruiting class with a lot of guys that he's developed relationships with kind of throughout the process. So very confident Tony sticks with Alabama. Now, we didn't talk about some of these other guys who visited this past weekend. Jaren Hamilton, wide receiver out of Gainesville. This is a kid that earned an offer from the Tide in June, came to camp, wide receiver, did really well. And certainly a guy that Alabama likes a lot. Now, he's not going to make a decision anytime soon. He wants to wait until probably after the season. He's got an official visit set to Alabama for the Iron Bowl. Also has a visit set to Tennessee in September. So those are some schools that he has very high interest in. He's also going to take a visit out to USC. I think he also mentioned to me that he's going to visit Michigan. But Alabama, definitely in a pretty good spot with Jaren Hamilton right now. Now, Jalen Hale out of Longview High School in Texas made another trip to Alabama. I think this was his 3rd or 4th trip to Alabama this past weekend. And, going into the visit, I mean, this is a kid that, many have said and many believe that he is a strong lean to Texas. But Alabama did a really remarkable job with him this weekend. Really opened up his eyes. I think Alabama is a strong contender. I know there's been some predictions that have jumped in on Jalen Hale to Alabama. I'm not there just yet, but I'm kind of off he's a hard lean to Texas. I think Alabama's done enough to really be in this race with him, and this is a guy that they have really loved for a long time, ever since he camped at Alabama last summer. So definitely some high interest there. And he's yet to take his official visit to Alabama. So he's going to come back, likely in October for that A&M game. Maybe he might come in September, but, looking like that A&M game is going to get an official visit from Jalen Hale. So, a couple of, big wide receivers in Tuscaloosa. Now, Jalen Hale makes a decision before Jaren Hamilton does. I don't know exactly what might happen there, but either one of these guys right now has that ability to call Alabama and make that decision for the Tide. So we'll see what happens over the next couple months with these guys. See if one of them, see if Jalen Hale decides to jump on board. Miles McVay was another big target that was in town this weekend. 4-star offensive lineman out of East St. Louis in Illinois. He also visited Mizzou, but I still think Alabama's in great shape with Miles McVay. I mean, this is a monster offensive lineman, 6'7", 345, 350 pounds. Can move really well. And, has a great relationship with Alabama offensive line coach Eric Wolford, who also recruited him when he was at Kentucky. So that relationship goes back a long time. He spent 3 days in Tuscaloosa in June. Just spent another 3 days at Alabama this past weekend, and he's going to be making his decision on August the 11th. So right now, still very confident in my prediction on Miles McVay to Alabama. A couple other guys that were in town this past weekend, included Ellis Robinson. One of the best defensive backs in that 2024 class. I had a chance to interview him. We hadn't actually talked to him 2 days ago, but haven't had an opportunity yet to transcribe that story and load it up online. But this is one of the premier prospects in the 2024 class. Says that it's pretty much a dead heat race right now between Alabama and Georgia. Had named Georgia as his leader at one point this summer, but after the trip to Alabama this past weekend, says that it is absolutely dead even for him. So, definitely a major target for Alabama and somebody that I feel like they're going to have a chance to land. One more guy I wanted to mention, because I don't want to go too far into the 2024 class this evening, because there's obviously the 2023 class.
Well, hold on. Do you see Andrew Bone, like his mind? Like, can you just sometimes I just sit back and it's just like, it's incredible the amount of knowledge that is up there. Just like the recruiting mindset of this man he's a machine, right?
I'm making it all up, No, I'm joking. I'm not. But they have have a little glass of wine.
Oh man, I mean, I just I'm just saying I respect the grind, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Honestly, I do, man. So,
but thank you, Kyle. I respect your grind, man. We got a good thing going here. The one other guy I wanted to mention is Daevin Hobbs, defensive lineman, visited Alabama this past weekend. Now, this is a guy who went to camp not last month. I keep saying last month because it's the second day of August. Yeah, I keep thinking we're in July, but this is definitely a guy that has really impressed Alabama throughout the summer. He earned an offer in June, and they have continued to evaluate him, did kind of their due diligence on this kid. And I certainly think that Alabama has moved up that list, and he's certainly a guy that they are starting to press even harder for right now. He's a 6'4", 200. He's just over 260 pounds, but definitely somebody that we're going to be watching very closely in the upcoming months. There was some thought that he might make a decision here in August, but I think he's decided to push that back a little bit. Likely going to wait until maybe the middle of the season or even after the season before committing. So expect Daevin Hobbs to make an official visit to Alabama at some point this fall.
Here with Andrew Bone, a Bama insider, coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Bone, there's been so many questions about what you're sipping, man. I even asked you in pre-show. I was like, was that a Merlot? It's clearly a cab, right?
Yeah. It's a cab.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself. He's a grown man.
Hey, you know what? We're at on 3 now, so little Camus never hurt anybody.
Yeah, and we're all for it, man. Okay, Bone. A couple things that we want to get to before, and people they want to ask you some questions. So at the end of the show, I told them we'll point some questions on the screen. You can answer them. But I know you wanted to talk about Kelby Collins. Announced on Tuesday his plans to announce his decision date this week. Give me the latest on Kelby Collins.
Always love the announcements for an announcement.
Yeah.
Those are always good to watch. Kelby's going to be announcing tomorrow or the next day a commitment date. I certainly expect the commitment date to be middle of August. So, we're looking at something happening probably within the next 2 weeks. Look at the RPM right there, and it's, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I really do think it's more so Alabama and Florida. I think Georgia's probably fallen off just a little bit. But he took an unofficial visit to Florida this past weekend. Now, he was supposed to be in Tuscaloosa last week. He was actually planning on being there Tuesday and Thursday, but was required to be at practice for his high school team on Tuesday and Thursday. I don't know what type of practice it was, but at least he had to be at a workout or something with his high school football team. So couldn't get down to Tuscaloosa, but got over to Florida. This is a kid that grew up an Alabama fan, grew up in the state. Of course, as we've seen in this recruiting cycle, it doesn't seem to matter too much. We've seen kids commit to Alabama that grew up fans of other schools. And obviously we saw Peter Woods commit to Clemson. So it's a tight recruiting battle right now between Alabama and Florida. I think, after his Florida visit this past weekend, they might have some momentum, but as we know, it's probably a week or two away from him making a decision, and he still hasn't made his official visit to Alabama just yet. He's planning on taking that official visit to Alabama this fall. Now, let's say he does end up going to Florida or ends up going to Georgia or somewhere besides Alabama. A lot of these other schools don't have these silly rules in place like some schools do that you can't take visits elsewhere if you're committed. Because guess what? These programs are all still recruiting guys who are committed to other places. So, I do think that even if Kelby ended up committing somewhere else, Alabama's still going to get this kid on campus many times. But that being said, I am still leaning towards Alabama right now as being the choice. Does that mean that Alabama is in the driver's seat right now? Maybe not. Florida could be, but 2 weeks from now, who's going to be in that driver's seat? And it could be Alabama. And, he's got a lot of connections down there, a lot of friends. Hunter Osborne said last night, he was the guy that he's going to be recruiting every single day until he makes that decision. So I do think that Alabama is going to be there the entire time, regardless if he commits elsewhere here in the next couple of weeks. But like I said, still leaning towards Alabama being the choice, but it's gotten really close with Florida over the course of the last few weeks.
Here with Andrew Bone. My name is Kyle Henderson, both of Bama Insider. That was our producer, Chris. What's up, Chris? We saw you, man. You doing work back there. It's all good, man. You come say what's up. It's all good. This is a family show, man. We got kids, and you're doing a great job, Chris. He's doing all the production. He did the graphics behind the scenes. So we have a junior producer behind every single show that make the wheels go round here at Bama Insider. We have 467 watching. We should have 467 thumbs up. Bone doing a great job. One more question, Bone, before we start getting some questions from our fans out there. JG's like beard life, man. Of course, yeah, beard life, a different life. We roll with the beards. Bone, the biggest question, man. If I had a drum roll, everybody wants to know who's next. Who's next to join this class, man?
I mean, there's been a commitment almost every single day for the last month. You're looking at Alabama's recruiting class right now. They have 18 commitments. People have been asking me more, how many is Alabama going to take? I think, you look at quarterbacks, they're done. You look at running backs, they're done. Mm-hmm. Of course, you got to hold on to these guys, but, they're not recruiting any more quarterbacks or running backs right now. A wide receiver, Jalen Hale, Jaren Hamilton, guys that we've talked about. Shelton Sampson's going to be announcing a decision on August the 6th. He's not going to Alabama, so you can forget about him. They're still recruiting Zachariah Branch, USC commitment, but long shot there. Mm-hmm. I do think at least one more wide receiver. Tight end wise, still going after a few tight ends. I don't see them signing another one. Maybe I think Lawson Lucky's still in there. Georgia commitment, Georgia legacy, but definitely has some interest in Alabama. I don't think we're going to see anything happen with him soon. If something did happen, probably later on in the year. Offensive line. Now, this is where we're going to see somebody commit here pretty soon. Miles McVay, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be announcing his decision on August the 11th. I'm predicting Alabama. I've already entered my RPM on 3, 80% for Alabama. Raymond Polito, big offensive tackle out of California, and Monroe Freeling. Both of those guys visited Alabama last week. Freeling might wait I see him kind of waiting a while. Polito, we'll see him back in for an official visit for the A&M game. But as far as everybody on the offensive side of the ball, the only one that I can kind of see making a decision sometime soon, or will make a decision soon, is Miles McVay. So let's go over to the defense side ball. You got Kelby Collins. We know he's going to be making a decision within the next couple of weeks. Edric Hill, defensive lineman out of Kansas City. He's probably going to wait until late September to make a decision. So I still think Alabama's in great shape with Edric Hill. Other defensive linemen that are out there, Jordan Renaud out of Texas just came off an unofficial visit to Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. A lot of people talking about a lot of Oklahoma people believing that Oklahoma now in the driver's seat for Jordan Renaud. Yeah, I don't know if I'm there yet. I still think that you kind of have to let the dust settle. All these guys, when they go on these visits, it's such an emotional high. It's a lot of fun. You're going to give a lot of good feedback to reporters, or you're going to tell coaches how great of a time you had. But once you kind of get back home and sit down with your family and make those decisions, a lot of times it's not that school. It ends up being another program. So I do think Alabama's still at least in that top two, and with Jordan Renaud, and I think they've got a really good chance to still sign him. But no other really defensive lineman that I see making decisions anytime soon besides the guys that I've mentioned. Linebacker wise, Centurion Perkins is going to be on flip watch probably until December, I think. I think he's just kind of doing his own thing, taking his own time. Maybe he flips, maybe he doesn't. I still think he ends up flipping, but we'll see when that time comes. I know everybody wants Keon Keeley to jump on board right away. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. I think he's going to wait a while. And then, as we know, Quay Russo, James Smith, the duo from Carver High School in Montgomery, those two guys are going to wait it out all the way until December to make decisions. Now, where we are kind of a little bit more intrigued about is cornerback. I think Alabama's probably finished at safety. We've talked about Bryce Thornton as being one of Alabama's safety targets, but I think as of right now, he's probably going to end up going somewhere else because Alabama has some great safety commitments. Tony Mitchell, Caleb Downs, Brayson Hubbard. So the focus right now is trying to get some cornerbacks. And we know Cormani McLain is a top priority target for Alabama. Malik Muhammad ended up committing to Texas a week or two ago. Alabama's still going to recruit him all the way until the end. There's some other guys that they're out there recruiting, but they just offered Sharif Denson out of Jacksonville, Florida. Now, Denson visited Alabama back in June. Was kind of surprised. He told me today, he said, I was surprised I didn't earn the offer from them in June, but got the call yesterday. Talked to T-Rob, Ellis Robinson. He actually called. T-Rob sent him a text, told him to reach out to him. He called him, and T-Rob told him, hey, you got an offer from us. We want you. We like you a lot after evaluating you. And this is a guy that they, really liked at cornerback. T-Rob told him, hey, we want two quarterbacks in this class that we're still really going after. And you're one of the guys that we want. He told me, he said, if Alabama shows me that they really want me, if they, if I'm not just another number to them and them just trying to get two cornerbacks, then they're going to be a serious contender in my recruitment. And I think that's probably going to be the case. I do think that, Alabama really likes him a lot. We're going to see a major push for him. He's told me he's going to come up to Tuscaloosa, likely for the Texas A&M game because it's his bye week during the football season. So a lot of these guys that we're going to see on campus for that Texas A&M game, most of them are only going to get there on get there on Saturday to spend Saturday and Sunday. He's actually going to be able to get there on Friday night, spend time, kind of go through that entire, probably go to the team dinner with the Alabama football team, kind of, see what all they do before a big game, like Texas A&M, because, as we know, that's going to be an absolutely loaded event with so many top recruits from all across the country. That's one of the games of the year in college football. And we're going to see a lot of kids coming in for officials, but obviously a lot of other kids that are going to be there for just unofficial visits. But that's a new name to also follow, Sharif Denson out of Jacksonville, Florida. So that's kind of a look. I mean, try to go down most of those guys that I feel like are going to be making decisions here in the next, couple of weeks, couple months. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of guys wait until November, December before they decide. And hopefully by then, Alabama's class is going to be wrapped up.
Hey, Bone, I wanted to post some questions. You got several questions lined up. We won't run through all of them, but we'll get some up on the screen. We'll do this at the end of our shows. And the first one is someone you just mentioned and got a nice, cute little baby in the avatar. I'll judge the avatars like I like to on some of our shows. We did that last year's. I would grade the avatars so that would come up. This one's a nice, snuggly baby from Alex. T-Rob. Is he, in terms of the connection, the Florida hire, Saban's best hire since Lane Kiffin? My goodness, I know. I mean, leading off with the question, I mean, T-Rob doing a great job. What's your take here?
I think he's a great coach, great guy, great recruiter. He really led the recruiting charge on Caleb Downs. Also really helped with Justice Haynes a lot, in addition to Robert Gillespie. But this is a guy that, builds a lot of great connections with kids, and kids, love being around him. So he's been a great hire for Alabama, at least on the recruiting front. There hasn't been a lot of, obviously, cornerbacks out there that they, there's probably 2 or 3 guys they've really kind of gone after. Obviously, they got Jahil Hurley on board, and he also helped a little bit with Tony Mitchell. Not completely. I mean, Tony was recruited by Freddie Roach throughout the entire process, even though somebody you see on message boards, oh well, T-Rob took over that recruit. That's not true. Just somebody just made it up and everybody kind of ran with it. But Tony was recruited by Coach Roach. Really a lot of the coaches were going after him. I mean, you have a 5-star recruiter or a top guy that you really want, the entire coaching staff is going to be coming after you. It's not just one coach. So I do think that this is a great hire. There were a lot of good hires for Alabama during the offseason. And I think that Eric Wilford, the job that he's been doing on the recruiting trail, I think he's closing in probably on his 4th offensive lineman. And these are all guys that they really wanted in this class. We've talked about this on Bama Insider when we were elsewhere, and now when we're at On 3. There was probably only about 8 or 9 offensive linemen that they really zoned in on throughout this entire process. Now, they missed on a few, and not necessarily guys that we felt like were going to end up at Alabama from the get-go. Caden Proctor goes to Iowa. Francis Mogoa goes to Miami. Francis only visited Alabama once. Caden visited Alabama twice, once last summer and once this summer. Visited Iowa probably 50 times during his recruitment. So being in that final 2, I thought he did a great job there. But he's been able to get the guys that we felt like Alabama was going to have a good chance to land with Rock, with Wilkin, and then with Olas. That Olas win was huge because we know what some other schools were doing as far as going after him and really putting a lot of pressure on him to go their programs, but Alabama was able to secure that one. I thought he did a great job there. And then with Miles McVay and some of these other guys that he's been recruiting, Raymond Polito, Monroe Freeling. It's crazy because every single one of these kids that I've talked to, at the offensive line position, all these guys knew Coach Wolford way before he joined Alabama's coaching staff. He had a relationship with a lot of these guys. Monroe Freeling, who visited Alabama for the first time this past weekend, his first offer was from Coach Wolford when he was at South Carolina 3 years ago. So, I think he's done a great job of really connecting with these kids and building great relationships. And, obviously, I think it's going to pay off in the end. But yeah, it usually takes these first-year coaches on Alabama staff about a year to kind of just get involved and really become a major player. I mean, we've kind of seen that with some of the guys that have joined Alabama staff through the years, and some who are there now and some who have gone on to other places. It took them a year, but once they kind of got their feet wet, they really hit it out of the park. And Coach Wolford's doing a great job this year already.
There's Coach Wolford, and I'm sure if everyone could ask him a question, be like, who's your offensive line? Right? Like who's your tackles? Who's your guards? Who's your center? Here with Andrew Bone, we're going to ask a couple more questions from the comment box to Bone. Real quick, Tanner wants to know how are you feeling about Cormani McLain as we enter the month of August?
I know that there's all these predictions on Cormani to Alabama, but I'm not there just yet. I think that Alabama is in that top group, in that top 2, top 3. But I think, the longer he waits, the more interesting it's going to be, because there are some heavy hitters that are coming after him, and some heavy hitters in the NIL game. I don't know how big of a factor that is in his decision, but we know that it has been a factor for some. Alabama wants this kid, really bad. I mean, he is a top priority target. He's a guy that they have, done a really good job recruiting. T-Rob has, really built a strong relationship with Cormani, and I think that what Cormani sees is at Alabama is the ability to develop elite cornerbacks. I mean, you look at the guys who are in the NFL right now, whether it's Marlon Humphrey or Trevon Diggs or Pat Surtain. I mean, it is absolutely loaded with elite players from Alabama at the defensive back position. And I think that's one thing that they're going to continue to really sell him on. And, I think they're going to have a great chance to land his commitment here in the next few months. Now, he has really kind of gone silent as far as doing interviews over the, really since the spring. Doesn't really, shed too much light on what's going on. But, visited Alabama back in June, spent a few days there, had a great time. And there was some, I'd heard a lot of confidence coming out of Alabama after that trip, but it's always confidence usually after a good visit, and he continued to take some visits elsewhere, and there's probably some more confidence coming out of some other schools right now. I don't think he's really given anybody any indication where he's going to go just yet. Could he just come out of nowhere and make a decision? It's possible, but from what we're hearing, it's probably going to be a little bit down the road, maybe even after his senior season before making that decision. But I do think, if I had to predict this very moment, I would lean Alabama. But we are, like I said, I think we're a few months away from seeing his decision, and we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens.
This might be my favorite comment ever in the history of our recruiting show. Sorry, got me choked up. It's hilarious. Jacob's like, yo, I could spend 10 minutes with Bone and he would have 30 minutes of stuff to say about me at my funeral. He's like, I love him. Oh man, that's good. I
have talked at 2 funerals, and one funeral was I had to get up there and talk for this man who worked for my family for several years, and it's so tough to get up there and talk, but I had to do it. And then one of my best friends died last year of cancer, and I had to get up and I was asked to read a Bible verse at his wedding. I was at his wedding, but I spoke. They're like, here's the Bible verse. I was like, okay. So they give me this entire verse to read. They said, we're going to leave it up there for you so that you get it. So I go up there, and the girl tells me, she said, hey, we shortened it for you so that you don't have to be up there long. I said, all right. It was 2 words. So I go up there and I said these 2 words, and the preacher goes up there and was like, huh, well, that was it, I guess. I was like, heck, dude. Like, I was told what to read at my best friend's funeral, and you're going to make a joke about it. But yeah, if someone on here dies and you want me to come speak at your funeral, I'll do it.
Well, but the beautiful thing about this, and I know you're a friend, and I know that impacted you a lot. There was a beautiful story written by AL.com, which you were obviously interviewed in. But the amazing thing, and I was talking with you earlier about this, I know we kind of shifting gears here, but this is about life as well, is that he just had a baby just a couple days ago. And I was talking to Bone, and I was like, as sad as it is, from death sometimes comes life, in this amazing way. So Betsy was born. She's doing well. You were at the hospital, right? You saw her. She's doing well. So
my wife was in the she was holding Sally's hand the whole time while she was giving birth. So, it was a close friend. He found out about 3 weeks before he passed that he found out 2 weeks. I guess it was about a month before he passed that she was pregnant. And then about a week and a half before he died, he found out that it was a baby girl. So it was a special moment. It's kind of funny because a lot of people who follow me know that I love the band Fish. I'm a huge Fish fan.
Oh, really? Wow. I didn't know that.
I went to Philadelphia a couple weeks ago just to see Fish with one of my best friends. And I went out to my buddy, and I know we're kind of off topic a little bit, but you know what? You guys got me talking, so I'm going to talk about it. I went out to his grave the day before she was born to just talk to him. Couldn't find his gravesite anywhere. It felt horrible. Sally couldn't find it either, so there wasn't a headstone. We're looking all over the ground for it, but I told him, I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to talk to you in the car for a minute. Show me a sign that you heard me. That night, a buddy of mine came over to the house. We streamed the Fish show on my back porch, and Jeff and I had gone to a Fish show together the year before, and it was our final kind of outing that we went to together. Everything else was pretty much just going and seeing him at his home in the bed. But they played this song called "The Final Hurrah." They don't play it often, but they played that song that night, and I called it "The Final Hurrah" before dad duties. I posted a photo of it, posted the music to it, everything. Well, another buddy of mine came over and watched the show, and he was there with us that night that we went and saw that show together. And this third song of the night, they played that song when we streamed it the night before his daughter was born. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was a sign that he's still with us, and obviously, we miss him every day. And he was a big fan of Bama Insider. I mean, he was always on the message board. He was always calling me. He had his own Alabama group text with some of his friends from high school, and he'd always call me and ask me certain things, and I would just tell him. But he'd always just text it to his group because all of his buddies would be like, "Oh yeah, Jeff told us about."
Was he a subscriber? Please tell me he had a subscription.
So he owned this popular restaurant in Birmingham called Slice Pizza.
I know
they've got like 5 locations, but what he did was he would subscribe to every site. He would subscribe to Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Georgia, and go on there, and just if anybody ever said anything about like going to Birmingham, he'd right on there. Oh, Slice Pizza is a really great spot. That's where I would go. Of course, it's been voted as best pizza in Birmingham for the last 10 years in a row. But he loved football so much. We were at national championship games together, SEC championship games together throughout the last several years. His wife just moved 2 streets over from us, so we're going to be a big part of his daughter's life for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, well, good stuff, Bone. I'm glad that
that was my. I'm sure everybody loved hearing that story, but
you know what? The thing about it too is this is life, and while we talk Alabama football recruiting, while we talk Alabama football, I mean, honestly, life is life, and the people who are close to you matter. And we're real people, you know what I'm saying? Going through real things with our family. I mean, you just brought in a beautiful child into this world. I have 2 children, a wife. I mean, this is how we support our family as well. It is by doing these videos and by the content that we produce. So, it's life. I mean, outside of this is life. As we get to the end of this show, Chris, why don't you pop on this social media feed from Alabama football real quick? But when people say that you don't have fun at Alabama, every year before the football season, this was Credit University's Twitter account, Coach Saban takes these guys out on the lake. I don't live too far from Lake Tuscaloosa. It's a very fun lake to play around with, especially if you have a boat. It's even better. One of my buddies has a wakeboard boat, and it is the funnest thing. So you got to get out there. Chris, do we have another photo of these guys having a good time before they get they start loading up to oh, there he is. But see, this is the thing about Coach. He always wears that Yankee shirt.
He doesn't have another shirt.
No, is that the only shirt that he has for the boat, right? I mean, by the way, fam, he's we have Coach tomorrow. That's a good one right there, hitting it up.
Who is that? Is that I think that's Elijah Davis, the freshman tight end.
Look at Bone. I mean, yeah, it doesn't say on Twitter, but if you go to Instagram, it usually has these guys tagged. Look at these guys. And see, the thing is,
they're scared to death. They, Coach Saban doesn't take it easy on these guys on the water. Even they're like, he doesn't care if they get hurt. He's going to sling them all over the water. He's just like.
And the thing about it is, when you go out to the lake with coach, you have to do something. You either have to ride a jet ski, wave runner, you have to get on a tube, you have to jump in, you have to jump off the docks, like you have to. Like there's no, and you're right. Like as soon as, like, you know, everyone sees that video of coach like hitting it, right? Like dropping the hammer on his boat. Like, no, he goes hard. I mean, Saban.
Well, there's a few things these guys are going to remember. They're going to remember that day out on the water, and then they're going to remember that first day of football practice in August with the pads on. And, you know, there's something about Tuscaloosa, Alabama in August, and it is just absolutely sweltering. It is, for some reason, the hottest place on earth in August. So, yeah, Birmingham's not too far behind, but for some reason it turns up a few more notches down in T-Town.
Oh, well, good stuff, Bone. I mean, absolutely crushed it, man. I mean, I just want to say, man, you've been doing such a great job. You know, not even just with On Three. I mean, back at Rivals. I mean, you know, we've been together for such a good amount of time. So I've seen your work evolve. So continue that grind, man. I really got a tremendous amount of respect for what you put into your craft. And everyone here, thank you very much for supporting us. Let's get this video to 500 likes. We'll be back tomorrow. We got a media opportunity with Coach Saban. It's Nick Kids. We'll have our producer out. We'll have that video posted. Thursday is Alabama's first practice. We'll have B-roll along with Coach Saban in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, we'll have media day. So that will mean we'll get to hear from Coach Saban, Pete Golding, and Bill O'Brien. Tons of coverage coming your way right here on Bama Insider on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. And then all the coverage back at Bama Insider, now a part of the On Three network. We have moved from Rivals to On Three. Please notate that and have a beautiful rest of your evening. Have a productive Wednesday tomorrow. We'll be here right here on Bama Insider from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Kyle Henderson. Have a beautiful night.